She stood in the corner of the glittering Christmas party, trembling hands clutching divorce papers that would end her 5-year marriage. Mascara streaked down her cheeks as her husband laughed with his mistress across the room. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the company throwing this lavish party, the paychecks they all depended on, the very building they stood in, belonged to her family. And tonight, everything was about to change. But before we dive into this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. And I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your country and the time in the comments below. Are you cozied up at midnight? Watching during your lunch break? Let me know. Now, let's begin. December 23rd, Boston, Massachusetts. The grand ballroom of Morrison Industries headquarters blazed with 10,000 twinkling lights. A 30-foot Christmas tree dominated the center of the room, its branches heavy with crystal ornaments that cost more than most people's cars. Waiters in crisp white jackets circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Nearly 300 employees laughed, danced, and celebrated another record-breaking year. But 28-year-old Elena Morrison stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching snow fall over the city she'd grown up in, the city where she'd met him, where she'd fallen in love, where her heart was now breaking into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Her phone buzzed, another text from her lawyer. "Everything is ready, just needs your signature. Are you sure about this?" Elena's hands shook as she typed back, "I'm sure. I'll sign 'em tonight." "Elena? Elena!" She turned to see her assistant, Marcus, approaching, his face creased with concern. Marcus had been with Morrison Industries for 15 years, long before Elena had secretly taken over operations of her late father's company. He was one of only 3 people in this entire building who knew the truth about who she really was. "You don't have to be here tonight," Marcus said quietly, positioning himself to block her from the view of others. "Go home. Let me handle this." Elena shook her head, blinking back tears. "No, I need to do this. I need to see it through." "See what through? Watching your husband parade his affair in front of—" "Don't." Elena's voice cracked. "Please don't say it out loud." Across the room, her husband, Ryan, laughed at something his colleague said. No, not just his colleague, his girlfriend, his mistress. 24-year-old Amber Chen from the marketing department, wearing a red dress that left little to the imagination. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. For 5 years, Elena had played a role. When she'd met Ryan at a charity event, she'd introduced herself as Elena Mitchell, her mother's maiden name. She told him she worked in consulting. She dressed down, lived modestly, and hidden every trace of the Morrison fortune that had been left to her when her father died suddenly 6 years ago. Why? Because Elena had watched her mother's 3 marriages crumble under the weight of wealth. She'd seen men transform into strangers when they learned about the money. She wanted someone to love her, not her bank account, not her family name, not the billion-dollar empire she'd inherited at 22. Ryan had seemed perfect, a junior accountant with dreams of starting his own firm someday. Humble, hard-working, kind, or so she'd thought. "He doesn't deserve you," Marcus whispered. "He never did." Elena straightened her shoulders, wiping her eyes carefully so as not to smudge her makeup further. "Where's Catherine?" Catherine Wu was Morrison Industries' CFO, and the only other person besides Marcus and Elena's lawyer who knew the truth about the company's ownership. "In your office. The papers are ready." Elena nodded slowly. "Tell her I'll be there in 10 minutes. I need a moment." Marcus squeezed her shoulder gently before disappearing into the crowd. Elena watched Ryan across the room, really watched him. When had he changed? Or had he always been this person, and she'd simply been too in love to see it? 6 months ago, she'd found the first text message, Amber's name lighting up his phone at 2 a.m. "Can't stop thinking about tonight." When Elena had confronted him, Ryan cried. He'd sworn it was a mistake, that he'd been drinking, that it would never happen again. He'd begged for forgiveness, and like a fool, Elena had given it to him. But the texts hadn't stopped. They'd just gotten better at hiding them. 2 months ago, Elena had hired a private investigator. The photos arrived last week. Ryan and Amber checking into hotels during business trips. Ryan and Amber having dinner at expensive restaurants Elena had never been to with her own husband. Ryan and Amber shopping together, his arm around her waist, looking at her the way he used to look at Elena, the way he'd never look at her again. "Attention, everyone." The CEO, technically the public face of Morrison Industries, clinked his glass for silence. David Robertson was a brilliant businessman who'd been hand-picked by Elena's father 20 years ago. He knew exactly who really owned the company, and he'd been a loyal steward of the Morrison legacy. "I want to thank you all for another incredible year," David announced, his voice booming across the ballroom. "Morrison Industries has grown by 42%. We've expanded into 3 new markets, and it's all because of the incredible team in this room." Applause erupted. Ryan whistled loudly, his arm now blatantly around Amber's shoulders. Elena felt bile rise in her throat. "Now, before we continue celebrating, I have a special announcement," David continued, his eyes finding Elena's across the room. There was a question in his gaze. She gave the tiniest shake of her head. "Not yet." David nodded imperceptibly. "Enjoy the party, everyone. You've earned it." As the crowd returned to their conversations, Elena made her way through the ballroom towards the executive elevators. She kept her head down, avoiding eye contact, praying Ryan wouldn't notice her leaving. "Elena!" Damn. She turned to find Ryan approaching, Amber still clinging to his arm like a barnacle. "There you are," Ryan said, his words slightly slurred. How much had he been drinking? "We've been looking for you. Amber wanted to meet you properly." Elena stared at him. Was he serious? Was he actually introducing her to his mistress at the company Christmas party? "Hi," Amber chirped, extending a manicured hand. "I've heard so much about you. Ryan says you work in consulting." "Something like that," Elena managed, her voice hollow. "Must not pay very well if you're wearing a dress like that," Amber giggled, gesturing to Elena's simple black dress, elegant but understated, purchased from a department store rather than a designer boutique. "No offense, I just mean, with Ryan's salary, I figured you'd be able to afford nicer clothes." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena felt something inside her snap. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, definitively, like the final thread of a rope that had been fraying for months. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I need to go." "Wait, But she was already walking away. Her heard Amber's voice behind her. "Is she always this sensitive?" Elena stepped into the elevator, her whole body shaking. As the doors slid closed, she caught one last glimpse of Ryan and Amber laughing together. The elevator rose silently to the executive floor, to the office that bore her father's name, to the moment that would change everything. The executive floor was dark and quiet, a stark contrast to the celebration happening 20 stories below. Elena's heels clicked to class marble floors as she walked past offices belonging to people who had no idea their real boss was a 28-year-old woman who'd spent 5 years pretending to be someone she wasn't. Light spilled from beneath her father's office door, her office door, technically, though she rarely used it. She pushed it open. Catherine Wu looked up from the desk, her expression sympathetic. "Elena, I'm so sorry." "Don't," Elena said, her voice steadier now. "Just show me where to sign." Catherine spread the papers across the massive mahogany desk. "Are you absolutely sure? We can wait. We can—" "I'm sure."
But her hand hovered over the first page, pen trembling. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of believing she'd found someone who loved her for who she was, not what she had. 5 years of building a life together, or thinking she had. "He wanted to go to Barbados for Christmas," Elena said suddenly, her voice distant. "Just the two of us. He said he'd booked a beachfront villa. He was so excited about it. I thought maybe we were going to be okay." Catherine remained silent. "The private investigator sent me photos this morning," Elena continued, tears now streaming freely down her face. "Ryan and Amber at the airport, flying to Barbados together, using our savings account to pay for it." "Oh, Elena. He told me yesterday he had to cancel because of a work emergency, a project that needed his immediate attention." Elena laughed bitterly. The project was her. It was always her. She signed the first page, then the second, then the third. Her signature became stronger with each page, more decisive. When she reached the final page, she paused. This was it. The end of everything she'd hoped for, the death of the future she'd imagined, the children they'd talked about, the home they'd planned to buy, growing old together, all of it gone. Elena signed her name one last time. "It's done," Catherine said softly, witnessing the signature. "I'll file these with the court first thing after Christmas." Elena nodded, unable to speak. "There's something else," Catherine continued carefully. "Marcus told me about what happened downstairs, what Amber said to you. It doesn't matter." "Elena, it does matter. You don't have to tolerate—" "What am I supposed to do, Catherine? Tell them the truth? Announce to everyone that I'm actually Elena Morrison and I've been lying to my husband for 5 years? That I own this company? That every paycheck Ryan's ever received, every promotion, every bonus, all of it came from my family's business?" "You didn't lie," Catherine said firmly. "You protected yourself. There's a difference." "Is there?" Elena slumped into her father's chair, the chair she'd sat in as a little girl, spinning in circles while he worked. "Because right now I can't tell." Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "We have a problem." "What now?" "Ryan's in the lobby. He followed you up. Security stopped him, but he's demanding to see you. He's drunk, Elena. He's making a scene." Elena closed her eyes. Of course, this couldn't be simple. "Let him up," Elena said quietly. "Elena, no," Catherine protested. "Let him up. He wants to see me? Fine, let him see me." Marcus hesitated, then spoke into his radio. "Send Mr. Hart to the executive floor." The three of them waited in tense silence. Elena folded the divorce papers carefully, sliding them into her purse. Her wedding ring, a simple gold band, caught the light. She twisted it slowly, then pulled it off her finger. The elevator dinged. Footsteps in the hallway. Ryan appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened, his eyes glassy from the alcohol. "There you are. Why'd you run off like that? Amber's feelings are hurt, you know. She was trying to be nice." Elena stood slowly. "Marcus, Catherine, give us the room, please." "Elena," Marcus started, "please." They left reluctantly, closing the door behind them. Ryan stumbled into the office, looking around with drunken curiosity. "Whoa, this place is nice. How'd you get access up here? You know someone important or something?" "Or something," Elena said softly. "Listen, about tonight." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Amber didn't mean anything by that comment about your dress. She's young, you know. She doesn't always think before she speaks." "How long, Ryan?" "What? How long have you been sleeping with her?" Ryan's face went pale. "El, I don't know what you—" "Don't." Elena's voice was steel. "Don't you dare lie to me. Not anymore. Not tonight. How long?" Ryan's shoulders sagged. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. 8 months. 8 months. Elena felt the room spin. 8 months meant it had started before she'd found the first text message, before he'd cried and begged for forgiveness. He'd already been deep into the affair when he'd looked her in the eyes and sworn it was a mistake. "I'm sorry," Ryan mumbled. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It did." "You didn't mean for it to happen?" Elena repeated slowly. "You accidentally took her to hotels? You accidentally used our savings to fly her to Barbados? You accidentally fell in love with her while you were married to me?" "I'm not in love with her." "Then why?" Elena's voice cracked, all her composure shattering. "Why would you destroy our marriage for someone you don't even love? Why would you humiliate me like this? Why would you bring her here, to this party, and introduce her to me like it's normal?" Ryan's jaw clenched. "Fine. You know what? Because I'm tired, Elena. I'm tired of living in that tiny apartment. I'm tired of driving a 10-year-old car. I'm tired of watching everyone else at this company move up while I'm stuck in the same position year after year. You got promoted twice to junior positions. Do you know how embarrassing it is? I'm 32 years old and I'm still considered junior. My college roommate is a partner at a law firm. My cousin runs his own business. And what am I? A nobody, a joke." "So you cheated on me because you're unhappy with your career?" Elena's voice was hollow. "I cheated on you because Amber makes me feel important," Ryan exploded. "She looks at me like I'm somebody. She doesn't judge me for not making enough money or not being ambitious enough. She sees me." "I saw you," Elena whispered. "I loved you exactly as you were. You loved the idea of me, the safe choice, the humble guy who wasn't after your consulting money." Ryan laughed bitterly. "But let's be honest, Elena, you're not exactly rolling in it either. We're both just ordinary, and I'm tired of ordinary." Elena stared at the man she'd married, the man she'd loved, the man who was now a complete stranger. "You're right about one thing," she said quietly. "You are a nobody. Not because of your job or your salary or your position. You're a nobody because of who you chose to be, because of the choices you made, the lies you told, the vows you broke." She pulled the divorce papers from her purse and set them on the desk. "What's this?" Ryan picked them up, squinting at them drunkenly. "Divorce papers? Are you divorcing me?" "I already did. I signed them 10 minutes ago. You can't just decide that." "I can, and I did." Ryan's face twisted with anger. Fine, fine. You know what? This is probably for the best. Amber's younger, prettier, more fun than you ever were, and she doesn't spend all her time moping around feeling sorry for herself. Get out, Elena said softly. What? Get out. This isn't your office, Elena. You can't tell me, get out. Elena's voice echoed off the walls, raw with pain and fury. Ryan stumbled backward, startled. You're crazy, you know that? You're absolutely crazy. He threw the papers on the floor and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Elena stood alone in the silence. Then, finally, she allowed herself to collapse into her father's chair and sob. Elena wasn't sure how long she cried. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been 50. Time had lost all meaning. A soft knock at the door. Elena? Marcus's voice, gentle. Can I come in? Yes. Marcus entered with Catherine, both of them looking at her with such compassion that it almost set off a fresh wave of tears. He's gone, Marcus said, back to the party. He's telling anyone who listened that you're unstable and that the marriage has been over for months. Elena laughed bitterly. Of course he is. Elena, Catherine sat down across from her. I know this isn't the right time, but we need to talk about tomorrow, the board meeting. They're expecting. I know what they're expecting. For 6 years, Elena had run Morrison Industries from the shadows. She'd made every major decision, every acquisition, guided every strategy, but she'd done it all behind the scenes, letting David Robertson take the credit, letting the board believe the company was running itself on
momentum and market conditions. She'd hidden, just like she'd hidden from Ryan. And where had it gotten her? I want to call an emergency meeting, Elena said suddenly. Tonight, right now. Marcus and Catherine exchanged glances. Elena, everyone's at the party, and most of them are drunk, I know. Perfect. Elena stood, wiping her eyes, straightening her dress. Get the board to the conference room, all of them. Tell them it's urgent. What are you going to do? Catherine asked carefully. What I should have done 6 years ago. I'm going to stop hiding. 20 minutes later, 12 board members sat around the executive conference table, ranging from confused to annoyed at having their Christmas party interrupted. This better be important, board member Patricia Williamson said sharply. I was in the middle of a conversation with, Thank you all for coming, Elena said, standing at the head of the table. Her hands were steady now. Her voice was clear. I apologize for the interruption, but what I have to say can't wait. David Robertson watched her carefully, a small smile playing at his lips. He knew what was coming. Some of you have been with Morrison Industries for 20 years, Elena continued. You knew my father, Charles Morrison. You helped him build this company from a small manufacturing firm into a global enterprise. Several board members nodded, clearly wondering where this was going. When my father died 6 years ago, the company's ownership transferred to his sole heir, to his daughter. Most of you assumed that the company's assets were placed in a trust managed by a board of directors, with David Robertson as your CEO. Patricia frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying that's not what happened. Elena pulled a folder from her briefcase, distributing copies around the table. Charles Morrison left 100% ownership of Morrison Industries to me. I was 22 years old. I had just graduated from business school, and I made a choice. Wait, another board member, Gerald Chen, interrupted. You're saying you're Charles's daughter? You're Elena Morrison? I am. The room erupted. That's impossible. Charles's daughter was named Elena Morrison. Yes, I've been using my mother's maiden name, Mitchell, for personal reasons. But my legal name, the name on every ownership document, every tax filing, every corporate registration, is Elena Cassandra Morrison. For 6 years, I've run this company from behind the scenes. Every major decision you've made as a board has been guided by my strategy. Every acquisition, every expansion, every policy change, I approved all of it. David has been my proxy, presenting my vision while I maintained anonymity. Patricia's face had gone white. Why would you do that? Why would you hide? Elena's voice softened. Because I wanted to live a normal life. I wanted to be more than just a billionaire's daughter. I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. And I thought if I could just separate my personal life from my professional life, if I could just be Elena instead of the Morrison heiress. She trailed off, tears threatening again. But it didn't work, she continued, because you can't build a life on a lie. You can't have a real relationship when you're hiding fundamental truths about yourself. And tonight, my marriage ended. Tonight, I signed divorce papers in this building, a building that belongs to my family, while my soon-to-be ex-husband celebrated Christmas with his girlfriend downstairs. A girlfriend who works for this company. A girlfriend who mocked me for not being able to afford nice clothes, completely unaware that I sign her paychecks. So I'm done hiding, Elena said, her voice gaining strength. Effective immediately, I'm taking my rightful place as the public face and CEO of Morrison Industries. David will transition to chairman of the board, and I want to make something very clear. She looked directly at Patricia, then Gerald, then each board member in turn. I've earned this position, not because of my father's name, but because of the work I've done these past 6 years. The 42% growth David announced tonight, that was my strategy. The expansion into new markets, my initiative. The employee wellness programs, the sustainability commitments, the diversity hiring policies, all of it came from me. Can you prove this? Gerald demanded. Elena smiled grimly. Marcus, if you would. Marcus distributed another set of folders, these containing 6 years of confidential memos, strategy documents, and decisions, all signed by Elena Morrison. The board members read in stunned silence. My God, you really have been running everything, Patricia whispered. I have, and I'll continue to do so, but now with full transparency. The media will be informed after Christmas. We'll hold a press conference on the 27th. I expect all of you to be there, standing united as we present Morrison Industries' future. And if we don't agree to this, Gerald asked, his tone challenging, then you're welcome to resign from the board, Elena said calmly. But let me be clear, I own this company, majority ownership. I don't need your permission. I'm extending you the courtesy of a heads up, because you've served this company well, and I respect that. But make no mistake, this is happening. The board members looked at each other. Then, one by one, they nodded. I'm in, Patricia said. Hell, it's about time Morrison Industries had a woman at the helm publicly. Agreed, another board member said. The votes came quickly, unanimous. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. She'd done it. She'd taken back her power. There's one more thing, she said. Ryan Hart, marketing department, and Amber Chan, also marketing. I want them both in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. David Robertson raised an eyebrow. Elena, if you're planning to fire them out of spite. Elena interrupted. I'm not. I'm planning to give them exactly what they deserve. That's all I'll say for now. Fair enough, David smiled. Welcome home, Elena. Your father would be proud. December 24th, Christmas Eve morning.
Elena sat in her office, no longer her father's office, but her office now, watching snow fall over Boston Harbor. She'd been there since 6 a.m., preparing, reviewing personnel files, making phone calls, setting everything in motion. Marcus brought her coffee at 8:45. They're here. Both of them? Both of them, in the conference room. Ryan looks hungover. Amber looks nervous. Good. Elena stood, wiping her dress. Today she wore Chanel, a burgundy suit that cost more than Ryan's car. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. Diamond earrings, her mother's, glinted at her ears. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman in power. "Let's go," she said. The conference room was on the same floor as the executive offices. Ryan and Amber sat on one side of the table, both looking confused and worried. They'd been summoned by David Robertson's assistant, told only that it was an urgent matter requiring their immediate attention. When Elena walked in, Ryan's jaw dropped. "Elena? What are you doing here? And what are you wearing?" Elena took a seat at the head of the table. Marcus and Catherine flanked her on either side. "Good morning, Ryan, Amber. Thank you for coming." Elena looked between them, clearly confused. "I don't understand. Why are we here?" "You're here because we need to discuss your employment status at Morrison Industries." "Our employment status?" Ryan's face flushed. "Look, if this is about last night, I was drunk. I said some things I shouldn't have said, but you can't just have us fired because of a personal dispute. That's not how it works." "You're right," Elena said calmly. "That's not how it works, which is why I'm not firing you because of a personal dispute. I'm addressing some serious professional concerns that have come to my attention." She slid 2 folders across the table. "Ryan, you've been submitting fraudulent expense reports for the past 8 months. Hotels that you claimed were for business purposes were actually personal trips with Miss Chen. Dinners you expensed as client meetings were dates. You've defrauded this company of approximately $43,000. Ryan's face went white. That's not... Elena, please." "And Amber," Elena continued, turning to the younger woman, "you're using company resources to run a side business. You've been leveraging Morrison Industries' client database to sell wellness products through a multi-level marketing scheme. You violated your non-compete clause and misused confidential information." Amber's mouth opened and closed like a fish. How do you know any of this?" Ryan demanded. "You're not even employed here. You can't just waltz in and..." "Actually, I can." Elena leaned forward. "Let me properly introduce myself. My name is Elena Cassandra Morrison. I am the sole owner and as of last night, the public
CEO of Morrison Industries. This company, this building, every desk, every computer, every single paycheck you've ever received belongs to me." The color drained from both their faces. That's impossible," Ryan whispered. "Is it? Did you ever wonder why I always seem to have enough money despite my supposedly modest consulting job? Did you ever question how I could afford our apartment, our car, our life? Did you ever actually ask me what I did for a living, or did you just assume?" "You lied to me," Ryan said, his voice shaking with anger. "You lied to me for 5 years." "I protected myself," Elena corrected, "and thank God I did, because now I know exactly what kind of man you are. The kind who cheats on his wife, the kind who steals from his employer, the kind who mocks the woman he promised to love while parading his mistress in front of her colleagues." Tears streamed down Amber's face. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He told me he was separated. He said you'd both agreed the marriage was over. I never would have..." "Save it,"
Elena said coldly. You knew he was married. You saw him wearing a wedding ring. You chose to believe whatever lies made you feel better about what you were doing. She stood, gathering her folders. You're both fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings. And Ryan, you'll be hearing from my lawyers regarding the expense fraud. I'll be pressing charges. Elena, please. Ryan stood, desperation in his eyes. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but you can't destroy my career over this. I'll never work in finance again if this gets out. You should have thought of that before you stole from my company. Your company? Ryan's desperation turned to rage. This is insane. You're insane. You lied about who you were. You trapped me in a marriage based on deception. And now you're using your money to ruin my life because I fell in love with someone else. Elena walked to the door, then turned back. I didn't trap you, Ryan. I gave you the chance to love me for who I am, not what I have. And you failed spectacularly. She paused. The divorce will be finalized after the new year. You'll receive nothing in the settlement. The prenup you signed, the one you barely read because you were so eager to marry me, makes that very clear. You planned this, Ryan said slowly. You planned this whole thing. No, Elena said softly. I hoped you'd be different. I hoped I'd been wrong about people. I hoped love could be real, even when it started with a secret. She felt tears prick her eyes, but refused to let them fall. But you know what? I'm glad I found out now. I'm glad I learned who you really are before I wasted another 5 years, before we had children, before I gave you even more of my heart to break. Amber, you're young. You'll recover from this. You'll find another job. You'll learn not to trust married men who lie to their wives. Consider this an expensive lesson. And Ryan, Elena's voice hardened. You wanted to feel important? You wanted to be somebody? Well, congratulations. By this time tomorrow, you'll be somebody. You'll be the man who cheated on Elena Morrison, who stole from Morrison Industries, who threw away a fortune because he couldn't keep his pants on. I hope it was worth it. She opened the door. 2 security guards stood waiting. Escort them out. Make sure they don't access any company systems. As the guards moved forward, Ryan lunged toward her. Elena, wait! I love you. I made a mistake. Please, we can work this out. The guards caught him, holding him back. You don't love me, Elena said quietly. You never did. You loved the idea of me, the safe choice, the woman who made you feel like a good person. But you never saw me. You never even asked who I really was. She walked away, leaving Ryan shouting her name behind her. 3 months later, Elena stood in the Morrison Industries lobby, looking at the new portrait hanging beside her father's. Her portrait, Elena Morrison, CEO. It looks good, Marcus said, joining her. It feels good, Elena admitted. Finally being myself, finally not hiding. Her phone buzzed, a text from Catherine. Another record quarter. The board wants to take you to dinner to celebrate. Elena smiled. She thought about Ryan sometimes, about the marriage that ended in that glittering ballroom, about the tears she'd cried in her father's office. But mostly, she thought about the future, about the company she was building, about the woman she was becoming, about the life she would create, not as someone's wife, not as someone's secret, but as herself, fully, completely, unapologetically herself. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what you're really made of. Elena Morrison learned that lesson on Christmas Eve, in tears, signing divorce papers while the world celebrated around her, and she was never more grateful. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional, real-life stories. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in Elena's situation. Would you have revealed the truth? Would you have pressed charges? And remember, you never know what someone's been through or who they really are until you take the time to truly see them. Thank you for watching. Until next time.